Hello and welcome. As the content on War Tortoise 2 is kind of old and is also more focused on the mobile version, I thought it's a good idea to have an updated one, especially for the Steam version, as some things have changed. And I wanted to give you a quick overview about a few beginner things you should consider. And also you will find a few more advanced tips later on. So I hope you will enjoy it and can get some information that will help you in the game, especially to progress easier and faster. So first of all, I want to give you an overview about how this game works. So when playing, you will progress through waves of enemies, and the higher you go, the more experience you will usually get, but I will talk about that later on. So you have your War Tortoise that will have different sets of weapons to equip. This is a topic I will go into more detail later on, but just know for now that there are different weapons, armors, and even different type of weapons. So for example, if you equip a certain set of weapons, you will get a DPS boost. Next to your War Tortoise that you can see here, you will have units here on the field, and those units are generation specific. So the units will always be the same, but their strength is always tied to a generation. So you have the Mouse Assault Squad, the Mouse Rangers, Hamster Commanders, War Balloon Brigade, Missile Toad, and so on. And depending on several things, you can unlock passives or even mutations and DNA research. You will get permanent increases. When you have reached a maximum wave where you get mostly one shot and don't deal a lot of damage anymore, you can then ascend to even a new world if you have them unlocked already, or just stay in the current world, which you will have to do, and then you will get more boosts. We will talk about that soon. So far about the War Tortoise and the units. And when we talk about units, there are also units that will give you passive income. That's first of all the Mouse Miners, which you can level up to 3 units, and the Pack Mouse, which will increase your passive wave income. Right, let's continue. So we've talked about the War Tortoise, which will also get stronger per generation, so per ascension basically, and this also is true for your units. And the gear that you can find will also get stronger, first of all by increasing your war rank, which is basically your level, your player level, character level, however you want to call it, and how many items you've acquired already. So if you have a lot of equipment keys, which you will accumulate over time, I will tell you more about this later on, or by just finding it, simply spend them, especially if you're just at the beginning of a war rank. The earlier war ranks will increase faster, of course, and later on it will take quite a lot of time. So as you can see here, I don't have a lot of war rank experience left until I'm war rank 39, so I usually save a lot of keys. This is also true for DNA. So for the mutations, sorry, not DNA, but we will talk about the DNA and the mutations in a second. But first of all, let's focus on other things first. So as I've said, you have the waves. This is just your usual active or passive mode. You can play actively yourself and even do more damage than when you are passively shooting or idling. because you have buffs that will increase your damage when you are actively playing yourself, so not playing the auto battle. But usually you will just let this run. The further you are in the game, the less active involvement is required, because you will unlock more and more abilities to just play the game passively. Let's talk about the units once more for a second. So for increasing their stats in the current generation, I'm approaching the 99th generation soon, you will have war supplies. These can be applied to increase certain bonuses. For example, a weapon upgrade, which is always there for a unit, will increase the base damage of all your units. Then, as you can see here, let's take the Mouse Rangers as an example. They have weapon slots here, which are usually those blue dotted ones, and one weapon applies to one unit as far as I know. The units have different kind of slots, so as I said earlier, every unit has a weapon slot. And then, for example, the Missile Toad does not have any heavy weapon slot, but only support slots. I don't know whether that's the official name, I'm just calling them support slots for now. There are some slots that you might find useful, especially in the beginning, like increasing wave cash, increasing boss cash. Here is one. So you get more money out of bosses because they tend to drop way more money, even without bonuses applied. And then there is more damage related stuff that you will most likely go for if your wave money modifiers are already really high. For example, like critical chance. Another really useful one is every 5th hit deals more damage. This is especially useful for units like the Gun Tortoise or even the Hermit Crabjankers and Missile Toad, because they have a high rate of fire. So you will always go for stuff like that, especially paired with critical chance. In the latest patch, they actually changed the war supplies, so I always was a fan of spreading those war supplies, because you can also have war supplies on your Tortoise, but as I will talk about later, just focusing on war supplies on your Gun Tortoise, or your War Tortoise, sorry, will not yield you the highest DPS. It's just not possible, and I will tell you why a little bit later. So you want to spread them even with the latest patch, because the bonuses on those war supplies will get higher as you spread those war supplies. I think that's all for the units right now. You can see certain buffs here for the units, and we will talk about those buffs that get applied without me doing anything. Which will help you, especially in the mid-game, I would say. You will not have access to those buffs in the beginning. But yeah, I think for the units we are good for now. So let's focus on the pilots, the heroes, and the tortoises. So you can have one pilot active as you are playing through the waves. The pilots always have one active and one passive ability. And here's the thing. As soon as a pilot reaches level 600 and you need a certain level cap, so you have to max that cap out up to 1000, those passive abilities will always be active. So if you're just starting out, one of the first things you're going to do is level your heroes, pilots, up to level 600. Because this will be a huge boost and you will immediately see it the more passive you have active. There is really useful stuff. For example, let's say The food recipes are boosted. We haven't talked about food yet, but you will collect apples while playing. I'm not sure about the drop chances, but from what I've observed is the closer you are to your maximum wave, the higher the drop chance of apples. I'm not sure, so don't call me out on that. I don't know whether that's a fact. It's just something I've observed. So if you have a certain amount of apples collected, we have 5 right now, which is a good example, you can go into the camping mode, which is C. And then you can apply apples. They've also recently changed this, so you don't have to wait for the recipe to finish anymore and get instantly the boost. Those boosts, let's just quickly look at them, are active for this generation. So if I ascend into a new generation, those buffs are gone. This can be like damage increases to certain units for all of your units, just for your War Tortoise, or sometimes you get rarer ones, which will increase the experience gain of heroes or pilots of certain ones. And also, I think the rarest one I've seen so far is where you will just get a really high amount of experience for a pilot or a hero, so he will actually level up like 20 or 30 times. The camping mode does have a few other things to consider, because especially in the beginning, and if you're maybe just having the game running in the background, you probably will stay in the camping mode for quite a few minutes, because there are certain passives that will do that job basically. And we will talk about them when we are talking about the tortoises. But I've found myself, especially in the beginning of the game, staying in the camping mode for quite a long time to plant a few seedlings, which we'll talk about soon. But let's go back to the pilots for a second. So, for example, I will just show you a few of them, which is why you want to get them as soon as possible. You will reflect damage always as soon as this one is 600 plus. You don't have to care about them anymore. Also, which is really important, is armor modifiers. This one will give you more passive income, way more, while fast forwarding. You will accumulate fast forwarding levels. So let's say, for example, when you start a new generation and you accumulate mutations over time that say like fast forward 150 levels of this world, like of the East world or of the Northland or Limbo West, for example. So every time you start a new generation, you fast forward 150 waves, for example, and get like 10,000% income for those first 150 waves, which is quite huge and also important, because you want to get your passive income as high as possible and also your damage. Alright, there is other stuff as well, like for example the heavy weapons deal extra damage, so we've seen that earlier. Units sometimes have those heavy weapon slots, so these bonuses will increase. And a lot of other useful stuff like Mouse Assault, Squad Mouse Rangers and Hamster Commandos gain way more damage modifiers. This is just basically you will unlock those over time. I would say you should have all the pilots and heroes at 600 plus by generation 50. The earlier the better. And we're going to talk about how you do it in a second. So there are a few pilots that also have very useful active abilities. I'm not going into detail for everyone, but for example the passive one here is every time an allied unit dies, it gives a random squad a damage buff for this generation. So these passives are really boosts that always and permanently apply. When I go back into the fighting, maybe if the unit dies, yeah, quick spending, we will talk about that later. When a unit dies, we will see what this will do. But I think we might be unlucky right now to see the buff actually applying. But we can always check out. Here is the buff we've seen earlier, which is the increased damage. You can apply other buffs like tombstones, and those come from a tortoise. But for now, let's just stay on the pilots and heroes. So there are a lot of passives. I would say just go through them yourself and decide which one you want to level up first. Up to level 600 is done really fast. To level 700 is also kind of fast. After 700 it becomes really slow to level the pilots and heroes. The heroes also have an active and a passive ability. So just as the pilots, as soon as they are 600 out of 1000, you will get the passive always applied. You can have up to 3 heroes that will fight for you, and just decide for yourself which ones you want to have in your loadout. Basically, I would say damage wise it doesn't really make a difference. The damage isn't really that high, especially if you are going for like a glass cannon build like I did. Your units will outperform anything else by far. For example, Ahab will increase your passive money income after each wave, so that's quite important. But there are other really useful ones that you want to get. For example, getting way less damage for yourself and your allies while you are stationary, which will happen a lot of times. So on the map you have different points of interest that you can take. So you will have to travel from one point to the next one if you didn't build a road. But if you're staying at a point of interest, which will be most of the time, basically you will get less damage. And this is quite important, especially the higher your waves are, because your base armor and even your health will always be really low. There are ways to buff them, but I think that's more of a topic for the advanced tips later on. Alright, I think that's all about the pilots and heroes. Just to sum it up, get them to 600 as soon as possible. You see a small rested icon here once in a while, after a few hours I think. So if they are rested, they get an experience buff. So as soon as you are done leveling one unit to a certain level, or you haven't played in 1 or 2 days, all of your pilots and heroes that are not active will be rested. So just equip them for at least 6 minutes, because if I equip Redfin for now, he will be rested now, but as soon as I choose another unit again, he's not rested anymore. So you have to play that pilot or hero for 6 minutes. So same goes for heroes, they also get the rested state. Now let's talk about the tortoises. The tortoises are basically skins that also apply passives. The tortoises don't have active abilities, all of them have passive abilities. Some of them are really useful, some of them are a must-have, some of them are optional, I would say. If you are starting out, you will most likely focus on Crusader. You don't have to level him to 1000 like I did. I just wanted to do it because he's buffing a certain unit, but that's not really something you have to go for. But the Crusader will basically level as you progress, because his second passive will give your heroes and pilots times 10 experience, so this is a huge boost, especially in the beginning. So you will have to stay on the Crusader at least until your heroes and pilots are level 600. When you level a Tortoise to 1000, level 1000, you get the first mastery. This means the first passive is always active. As soon as you level a Tortoise to level 3000, the second passive will always be active. There might be an addition to that, for example, that says the passive is only 50% as effective when this skin is not active. But either way, you will focus on some Tortoises first and to get those passives permanently. You can increase their level. I think you saw that earlier. There will drop like fruits that you can collect by clicking on them, or they just get auto-collected, I think, after 5 to 10 seconds. I'm not sure how long it takes, but let's just say maximum 10 seconds. And let's talk about a few other really important ones. As you can see, I have leveled Gorlock to 3000 right after I did Crusader, Rindolph to 1000, and Draken. I did those 3 first. I would say probably, if you don't care, get Crusader to 3000 first, but this really takes a long time, so I would rather go for 1000, because you will, as I've mentioned earlier, Crusader, by leveling your heroes and pilots, he will get a few levels. After that, Rindolph is really important. He will basically get you an elite miner. Remember, from the units you will have up to 3 miners that will get you passive income, and one of those miners now has a chance to find mutation keys and tortoise keys. Tortoise keys are those that will get you a random piece of equipment, and the mutation keys will give you different kind of mutations, but we haven't talked about the mutations yet. So this one is really important. His second passive is more like a mid to end game, so you can carry more apples and cook 6 instead of 5 apples, which will basically just improve the recipe bonuses. I'm not sure whether a 6 apple recipe might only be possible, which you cannot get with 5 apples. I'm not sure about that. There is not a lot of information about this anywhere. But yeah, usually I will save up to 12 apples, go into the camping mode, equip Rindolph, because only when he is active, or if you have leveled him up to maximum level, you can then cook basically twice 6 apple recipes. So focus on this one as soon as you can. And then let's talk about the permanent damage increases your units and heroes can get. So I'm leveling Ancient right now. His first passive is increasing your lumber income from all sources. This means, for example, 1 pilot has a chance of rewarding you some lumber after each wave. This might be 2 lumber or 10 lumber, and this one will basically modify this by times 10. And there are also lumber mills, which will give you lumber after a certain amount of waves. And this number right here is already modified, so when I select another one and go back to the map and select the lumber mill again, you can see I will only get 35 lumber after completing 275 levels. This might sound like a lot, but we haven't talked about the map yet, so don't worry, the earlier levels will require way less waves to complete. Alright, There are more unit-specific passives, like Draken. He is doing like an elite sparrow. You have, I think, 3 sparrows. Yeah, 3. So one of them will become an elite. We can just go into spectator mode and see him flying up here. So this one is the elite sparrow. I just personally found him cool, that's why I leveled Draken up to 1000. And also here is the elite mouse sword squad, basically all of the units with a star above their head. And let's just quickly show you the winter mouse miner, which is also with a star over his head, which has a chance to dig up mutation keys and tortoise keys. So you don't have to focus on Draken, really. I just found the unit really cool and I wanted to have that special unit, but to be honest, the Sparrow Squadron is pretty useless, and we will talk about that when it comes to the progressing fast and how to really increase your damage. Gorlock is the by far most important one you want to have to at the maximum level, but don't get me wrong, I would not level him right from the beginning, because as I've said, getting the passives is your priority number 1. And it's because he has 2 useful passives. The first one isn't that useful. You will get by every 10 minutes 15 minutes you've played, sorry, you will get an extra life. So you have 2 lives when you die, and after those 2 lives are gone, you can pay a few gems, I think 5, so not a lot, don't worry, to get an extra life, or just ascend to the next generation. Sometimes you will just have units. For example, there are those mouses with a laser rifle with a really they have a long range and they just deal a lot of damage, and when they just target you randomly, you will just die in a few seconds. This happens especially on higher waves. There are ways around that, but that's more of an advanced topic. So you want to get more additional lives. This is just, doesn't cost you anything, just get it. And the second one is by far the most important. And the sooner you start with this, the better. I started around, I think, generation 30 when I realized this, how strong it actually is. So tombstones will give you a permanent damage increase, and this can done once per generation per unit, or per squad to be correct. So when we go into the units, we haven't talked about the DNA stuff yet, but as you can see, there are 4 things that can get applied. The 50% discount, this is the maximum, so get the 50% discount as fast as you can, but let's talk about that later. Then there is like a general damage modifier applied to the squad. Then there's the wild growth one. This one gets applied by Ancient, which is why I'm leveling him right now. We will come back to this in a second. And there is the tombstone, and this is by far the biggest modifier you can get. So every time a tombstone is laid, this can happen once per generation, remember, this bonus will increase. And as you can see, some units have a really low one, like times 1 million. This might sound huge, but the further you go, it's actually not that big of a deal compared to other ones. So there are units that die really easily. This is because they get targeted more often. This is true for the hamster commanders. They tend to have the biggest aggro. So though those ones get, even though they are like 4 or 5 units, not sure, they get wiped pretty quickly later on, which is good actually. And so you can lay down a tombstone. Also, you have single entity units, to call it like that, like the missile toad, the hermit crab junkers, and the artillery beetles, and the most important one, the gun tortoise. And as soon as this single unit dies, you will get a tombstone. This can even happen by accident on, let's say, wave 100. The gun tortoise just gets blown up and you already have your tombstone for this generation. And you can always check this by going into your upgrade screen and see, there's a tombstone applied already. So you don't have to worry for another, I don't know, 2000 waves or something like that. And I said earlier, I find the Sparrow Squadron, I love them, but they are pretty useless because they get outperformed by other units so fast. This is true for the Assassin Frogs, Sparrow Squadron, and the other ones are the Mouse Rangers. I wanted to have them get wiped way more often, but it's really hard. It's really hard. I also struggled with the Mouse Assault Squad, but it got easier. But we'll talk about that, how to get even more tombstones out in the advanced section. So just know for now, you can get those 4 things applied. And this is, the tombstones are units only. So we are done with the tombstones. Let's talk about the wild growth. This number is way smaller than the tombstone number, but I also thought, hey, maybe those damage multipliers just are additive, but no, they are multiplicative. So this number also matters. And you get the wild growth by playing with Ancient. And here's the thing, you can have, and this is why I said I really did a lot of camping when I wasn't actively playing. When you are camping 10 minutes at a location, you will set a seedling. You can see this small green symbol, and here you can see a lot of green symbols. So one option is to camp at a location for 10 minutes. You can always check this by going here, and then you will see a timer appearing. Let's just quickly... Why is Ancient not active right now? This is actually maybe a display bug, I'm not sure. No, it's not a display bug. Now you can see it. 100 waves remaining. This is the second option, and this comes more into play, I would say, in mid-game. Let's say 50th generation plus. When you're not camping anymore because you have unlocked certain auto-battling stuff, you will simply go to a location and have Ancient equipped and just do 100 waves there. And then after those 100 waves, you will see that a seedling will get planted. They are pretty noticeable. So when we go to a location with a seedling for a second, maybe one that is not maximum wave already. So you can see there is a huge seedling. And these seedlings do not only apply to your units, but also to your heroes. So I would say, if you don't really have time for active playing, I would say sooner than later get maybe up to 20 or 30 seedlings out. Don't worry, it might take some time until all of your heroes and units will have a wild growth bonus. For example, One Eye was, the pilots are also here, so they cannot get a bonus. The heroes, I think One Eye was the last one. I planted over, I think, 50 seedlings, maybe less, at that time. And One Eye just didn't have a bonus, so it just seems to be random, and it just took some time until all of my heroes and units actually had a bonus. Alright, so these are the most important modifiers to really increase your damage. This one is good, but the one that will really push you further and further are the tombstones. But there are problems with this. When we are talking about the maximum wave, but we will talk about that in a second. But I think for now we are done with the pilots. Oh, and also you can send your pilots to quests automatically, but yeah, that's something I think is not really worth mentioning because you will simply see that yourself. I'm not going to talk about every feature in the game. So yeah, for now I think the pilots, heroes and tortoises, the most important stuff is set. Let's go to the next topics. All right, let's talk about the DNA and the mutations. Basically, DNA is what you can collect passively later on and actively by increasing your capture level on laboratories. Those will yield you DNA. It's not huge, but in the beginning the cost of unlocking research isn't that high. So there is a lot of research you have to go through, and a few things to consider here. First of all, those are all like permanent increases, though, so they are not generation dependent, and it's really hard to say what to focus on first, but usually you want to go for your money modifiers first. So you will not have access to all of those from the beginning. So I think on War rank 32 or 35 maybe, your last one actually unlocks for the gun tortoise, and every unit has one or two are always the same, but one is really important, which is prowess, or however you pronounce it. This will give you a power increase per generation. So you want to have this on every unit unlocked as soon as you can. Otherwise, the mouse miners are important. The pack mouse is important, which is your passive increase to wave money, if you remember. And let's just quickly go back. Also, the hermit crab jankers will give you a global modifier for income per wave. This will actually take a lot of time to max it out, so don't worry about it. I would say go for the mouse miners first, especially this passive, so you have a chance to find rare currency. This is really important. Also, this takes a lot of time to max out, so don't worry about it. Just get the first or two levels, which will increase your maximum level the mouse miners can level to. So once every 1,000 levels you will hit like a point where you need a huge amount of money until you get to the next 1,000 levels. So level 999 will be done quite easily, but 1,000 takes a lot of time because it requires way more money. So for example, 3,000 goes up to, I don't know, CE, I think, maybe CF, but I think CE. And after that there is a gap where it continues at like CR or even CT, I'm not sure. And that gap you basically have to overcome by doing enough damage to get your wave count way higher, where you get enough money to then be able to get to the next mouse miner upgrade. So this is like saying, hey, you can't progress further if you don't deal enough damage. And when you reach that point, you are finally there to be able to unlock the last upgrade, you can then increase basically your maximum mouse miner level. There is other stuff that will give you more income. For example, the Mousesaur squad can give you more wave money for every kill. This might be useful in the beginning, but mid-game I would say they are just melee units and most of the kills are done by ranged units. So it's not expensive, that's why I've maxed it out. But yeah. Basically just go through that stuff and find all of the important ones, like mouse miners, find rare currency. The pack mouse can also collect rare currency, so you want to focus that one also. Then food recipe bonuses is also, it's nice, but it's not that important in the beginning. Focus on the pack mouse miner, and if you can also get 1 or 2 upgrades here. But as you can see, this is level 10. It was quite expensive and it's only a 3.5 modifier. So it's more of a mid-term goal to unlock this one. But as I've said earlier, if you are done with the collect rare currency ones, get the prowess one at least once for every unit. As you can see, I haven't even unlocked the second one everywhere yet. Get it once to have a, let's say, a power increase for all of your units every generation, to push a little bit further every time. So this is the unit section. The hero section and pilot section, this one will be your most important one in the beginning. So this is another global modifier and you want to max it as soon as you can, because you want to get your heroes and pilots to 600 as fast as possible. The other stuff is nice, but it's not that important. Heroes gaining a power per generation, still my units outperform heroes and the War Tortoise by far. The overdrive count is also nice. We haven't talked about overdrive yet, but we can do that in a minute. The quest time is more of a mid-term goal, don't bother too much. I think the quest rewards of the heroes and pilots will get better the higher they are. So don't bother until your pilots or heroes are above 600. When a pilot will finish its quest, you can select easy or hard, always go for hard. He can get back with experience points, so he will level. For example, he needs, we can see that right now, he needs 1.6 billion experience right now, and sometimes they will get back with, I don't know, 10 billion experience points. So they will basically just get a few levels on, I think, around 10 hours, maybe even lower, I'm not sure about that. And they can also come back with tortoise keys, with mutation keys, and gems, basically. I think 5 gems from a hard quest. Those timers are nice to have later on, but not that important in the beginning. The rest of the time, yeah, it's nice to have. If you have the spare DNA, get it. And then there is the tortoise stuff, which is totally not important in the beginning. There are again generation-wide boosts, like increasing your health per generation, totally not important. I'm serious here. Even increasing your power, not that important. Auto battle. This is something we haven't talked about yet, but we will do in a second. I think for the heroes, there's not much more to say. You don't have hero or pilot specific ones you can unlock. So we can focus on the auto battle for now. So the auto battle has 4 levels, which will do different kind of things. The first one will basically just automatically shoot for you at enemies. This is, I would say, nice. The sooner you get it, because you don't have to do the shooting yourself. The next level, I think, is just increasing the ability to aim and aim faster. Also nice to have. The third and fourth level are about idling. So when you get the third and fourth level, you will get the ability to quick spend your money. Quick spend your money on upgrades, and also later on quick spend on the war supplies. You can actually configure this in the options, whether you want to apply the quick spend to war supplies or not. Sometimes when I'm like half active, I set this to no and do the war supplies myself. When I, for example, want to push a maximum wave, I usually do it myself because I would just go for damage increase. And then on the last level, I think, you get the automatic continue, which will revive you as long as you have 3 lives available. And when the lives are at 0, you also get the ascension to the next generation. So the game will keep playing itself. If you want to go that route, first, I would say do it, but it's expensive. The last upgrade, I think, is 1000 DNA. Even on my generation, 1000 DNA is hard to come by. So go for it if you want to, but I for myself found the money increases important, or more important. So this auto battling also will travel, wrong key, will travel from node to node. So when a node gets maxed out at 5 stars, okay, this one is different, but when it's maxed out, it will simply go to the next one. I think to the nearest one, but I'm not sure. Because for example, I'm more like half active over the day, and then when I go to bed, I will just let the game run itself. You will notice performance drops after a few hours. So when you have like the game ran for a few hours and you are going to bed, exit the game, restart it, and then let the game play itself. You will get certain lags and the menus are getting slower after a few hours. So just keep that in mind. I think we're done for the DNA stuff. Let's talk about the mutations. Alright, mutations. Mutations are dependent mostly on your war rank, so their strength is influenced. I don't have a formula, but that's just what the devs basically said, by your war rank. And also, I think the more mutations you get. So, as I've mentioned in the beginning, if you are approaching the next war rank, just save your mutation keys when you have some, or your gems, and just wait for the next war rank until you spend them. So those will give you permanent increases, for example, giving your different weapon sets of your War Tortoise more damage. Also more damage for your units, and the 50% discount is the maximum. So if you see that mutation, just get it as soon as you can to 50% for every unit, so you will not have that in the list of mutations anymore. This is also true for the global one, which is the war supplies discount. So those war supplies also get 50% discounted. Then, as I've mentioned earlier, you can get a fast forward. So like the first 175 levels will always fast forward. This comes again into play with the passive ability from the hero, from the pilot, sorry, called Chicky, which will increase your passive money or your money income per wave while fast forwarding. So this is actually a really huge boost. Then you get starting money. This is actually, I just noticed earlier, a quite huge boost for my current generation. I think I had like a supercharged mutation somewhere when the game played itself, because I was around at AF starting money, or AG I think. So something happened while I was not actively playing. You get more wave money, which is also important, more global damage, so all your units, heroes and your War Tortoise and stuff like that. So when you just get a mutation, you can basically select one. I usually go for wave money, but if I just feel like the modifiers are fine, I just need more damage. As you can see, this is around 150 million right now, so I will just get that. And as you can see, you can buy in bulk, which will basically randomly select them, and you can get a supercharged. You will see like a supercharged right below here, and this will be a huge boost, so you will go for it, no doubt about that. Away money, I'm not a really big fan of that. So basically when you're not playing the game is closed, you will get passive money while you are away. Also other stuff like gems and things like that. It's not that important, and it will increase over time, but just don't bother. So yeah, I'm not going to spend more of my mutation keys now to showcase it, because I'm close to the next war rank. And yeah, that's basically all you have to know about mutations. Maybe how you can get more mutations besides waiting for the mutation keys to come. There are two, or now there are 3 shops in the game. No real money, no cash, just an in-game shop with in-game currency. And we haven't talked about 2 modes yet, which is the adventure mode and the fishing mode. So I think the mutations are pretty straightforward, also the DNA, so we are done with this part. Let's quickly talk about the map if you are interested. So you have different like layers. You always start in the middle, and the higher your conquest points are, the further out you can go. This is actually pretty far. I've defeated all of the bosses in the first world already. As you can see, I have all of objectives complete here. And I'm not going into too much detail here, because you can just find that out yourself. But the further out you go, the more levels the location needs. So I didn't even bother with many of those yet. So even if you're done with all of the bosses and objectives, the world is far from complete. This is also because you will unlock other worlds as well, and as soon as you get the Northland, I would say go there, because you get more war rank XP for capturing locations. So if you just want to quickly increase your war rank, just go to Northland and play there. If you cannot progress any further, which might happen, especially in Limbo West this happens, just go back to the other world and capture again. So yeah, I think that's all about the world map. That is really important. As I've mentioned earlier, you can build roads, and you will do so everywhere basically. And you can build outposts, which is like, where are we currently? Here. Just build an outpost, and you will see like a tower that will also do damage. There are points on the map that have no building on them. You don't have to build on them right away. It doesn't matter. You can build a building now or later. And you need lumber for most of the buildings. One exception is the lumber mill. You will place a lumber mill here and there, but 90% of the buildings, if not more, will be laboratories. Now here's the thing. The more of a building you build, the more expensive it will get. So right now it's 14.8k, and now it would be 14.95, and this will or can get pretty high. As you can see, I think I built 1 or 2 gold mines maybe. I've built like 5 lumber mills, I think. And yeah, so that's basically all you need to know. Laboratories are just most important to get, and then max them out basically as soon as you can. Yeah, I think that's all for now. So let's continue to the adventure and fishing modes. Let's go to the map again, so you will have different buttons here to just quickly search for a certain location. You have adventure levels. In the first world, the first adventure location is pretty near you, and this is also by far the best farming location. We haven't talked about adventure mode yet because it's something either you are going to completely ignore because you hate it, or you do it like me and do it just from the beginning, spend like 40 hours in there and then never touch it again if you don't want to. Why? Let's see. So the adventure mode is like an RPG or first-person shooter mode. You get to play yourself with a weapon to fight enemies. And this is independent from your war rank, your generation, and your tortoise equipment. So when we go to the adventure screen, you will have an adventure rank, which can only be increased by 2 things. The first one is leveling those adventure locations, and there are only a few. 2, 3, 4. Yes, I recently just discovered this, so I might max it out, and I think 4, maybe 5 per map. These locations are leveled by reaching a certain level in the adventure mode. So if we go back to, where is it? Here. So this one needs to be adventure level 1000 to be at capture level 5. And these capture levels will increase your adventure rank. And also, while playing the adventure mode, you can find locations to capture, but this is another topic for the auto spending just hit. This is another topic for basically adventure mode, would be a video about it, or I should have maybe a full video about the adventure mode. You can capture a war rank experience or adventure rank experience point where you will get like 10% experience. So you have an adventurer, just this one, and you can level this one by camping in the adventure. So you will kill enemies and you will get experience for that. And then when you find a camping location, you can increase your adventurer level. This is a permanent increase, which will basically modify or increase your damage and health and armor modifiers. You will also find adventure gear, so a melee weapon, a ranged weapon, and an armor piece. I don't want to go into too much detail here, but just a few things to consider. You will want to go for a laser weapon always. As you can see, this legendary weapon is way better, but laser weapons are just the best. Even though their base damage is low, They shoot fast, they reload fast. They have most of the time huge magazines. So as you can see, I have 60. They're shooting fast and the reloading is done in 6 seconds. And why is adventure mode important? Also fishing mode, but not that important. You have an adventure shop. You get adventure tokens inside of an adventure. Those tokens, not to be confused with adventure coins, those tokens are spent in the market. There are things that will refresh, I think, every 30 minutes, where you can get additional DNA, which is a huge boost. So if you've played a lot of hours in adventure mode, you have some tokens, like maybe 5,000, after you've done the other stuff, which I will talk about in a second. So you will save those tokens and always buy DNA and only DNA. If you really want to save, you're only going for the deals, the discounted stuff. That's what I wanted to say. But if you want to min-max and really get the most out of your progress, you will have to play a lot of adventure mode. Let's talk about the relics. So you have to save up to, I think, 10,000 adventure tokens, roundabout. Maybe even less if you don't want to get all of it. The relics are permanent boosts, and some of them are quite important. First of all, there is, let's just quickly, where is it? The godly tortoise weapons, which will give you a chance to find godly tortoise weapons. Also godly tortoise armor is important. Then if you are enjoying the adventure mode and want to play it for a longer period of time and farm even more tokens and get better adventure gear and stuff like that, there is a auto-targeting system, and this just works best with laser weapons. This will just shoot at enemies automatically. So this is especially important in later waves, I would say 500 plus or even 1000 plus inside the adventure mode. Because the number of enemies that can spawn gets pretty high, and clearing them manually is possible, but it will take a lot of time. Also, you can increase your adventurer damage. I think I unlocked this twice, and your adventurer health and armor modifier. Also, you can access the adventure and fishing markets from everywhere, I think once every 30 minutes. Also, you get more tortoise food, which will increase your tortoise level. So this is important to get. Mutation discount, not that important, but I think that's basically most of the stuff. Also, you can, if you want to, increase your apple storage. So I've increased it by 4. I think that's a nice number, because you can carry 10 apples and now you can carry 14, and this makes it possible to just cook 2 6-apple recipes. This is what I usually do. So this is the adventure relic section. Did I forget anything? I think not. So if you really want to min-max everything, you have to play the adventure mode, and yes, it will take a lot of time. And here is actually the third shop just appeared, which is, as I'm recording this, quite new. This will appear also once in a while, offering you free stuff and also stuff that you can buy. I only saw this shop like twice now, or 3 times I think, so I cannot say a lot about the stuff that will appear here, but yeah, just get the free stuff. The other mode is the fishing mode, where you basically increase the capture level by catching fish. So let's just quickly go there. So when we go to the tortoise equipment, you have this fishing rod symbol right here, and you can get a fishing rod. This fishing rod has a lure, a certain lure, and certain lures can catch certain fish. I'm not that much into fishing. I just did what I had to get specific relics. 2 relics are must-haves. Maybe even 3. If you want to catch more fish, so go for the advanced lures relic as soon as you can, so fish will bite more often. If you enjoy fishing, go for the legendary lures as well, so legendary fish or even rare and epic fish will bite more often, and these type of fish will yield more fish bones. Fish bones is what you need to get the stuff in the market and the relics. And the 2 must-haves are mutation power. So every new mutation gets a times 1 million power modifier. This is a huge boost. You will need this as soon as you can. And then the equipment power with a times 1 million power modifier is also a must-have. Everything else, just do it if you want to. For example, free equipment keys or mutation keys. This is still on my to-do list, but I just didn't take the time. So you can get 2,000 or 3,000 fish bones pretty quickly because there are quests to complete, like catching certain fish types, which will happen over time. Or what you can also do is skip a quest by spending gems and just completing it that way. So sometimes I do it if I just need some more DNA, so I can just buy the DNA. But yeah, those are definitely must-have: mutation power and equipment power. And if you want to do more fishing, just get the advanced and legendary lures. Armory salvage. Not sure it might actually be important. I'm not sure how often or what the drop chances are right now, like the base drop chances. I tend to find rare and legendary gear quite often, so it's okay. Even godly gear is not that uncommon. But yeah, and just as a quick reminder, just because something is godly doesn't make it really good. Unfortunately, I salvaged my godly armor already, which was really useless. So just watch out for the stats, especially for armor, because armor has health and armor, but also, which is really important, regen, which will regenerate health, and repair, which will repair your armor over time when you get shot. And there is godly armor, I think also other rarities, that do not have regen and repair. So once you get shot, you stay at that level. There is a way around that. I said that earlier, some passives will get you further, and this is also why my pilot Elroy is higher than all of the other heroes, because when I'm like late game in the current generation, when I'm approaching wave 2000 or 1900, I use this hero to buff my armor. So you get a boost for 2 minutes, your Tortoise and your units get a modifier to armor damage, and after that you get bonus armor, to put it simply. And this bonus armor gets really high, that gets applied here. So when I would do it right now, I would get like DE, DK, something like that armor. And this will basically make you invincible. Not really invincible, but nearly invincible. There are certain missiles that can be shot by enemies. They are really slow and usually get destroyed pretty easily. But if you are pushing as far as you can and want to have all your units die, or most of them, to apply a tombstone, you will basically buff your armor. And here's the thing, you have to stay on that hero for the buff to be active. I'm not sure why they did this, because not all of the hero and pilot buffs require you to stay on that unit. For heroes, I haven't tested it with all, but usually the hero needs to be active, so I cannot activate a buff and then switch to another hero. For heroes, on the other hand, pilots, excuse me, most of the time the pilot has to stay active while his active ability is going, but there are exceptions. For example, Nicola, remember her passive will give a buff to a random unit when a unit dies, but her active one is also really huge, which will apply a damage buff. And this is stackable, so you can have both buffs. And this one stays active even when you switch from Nicola to another one. So usually when I start out and want to go for a high wave, I get this going once or twice. It has a 10-minute cooldown, so get it off once. Then I usually disable quick spending war supplies. After that, I play for some time because my starting money is really high, which will allow me to get around 50 war supplies already. And what I will do before I buy those war supplies is I will switch to, where is he? Ace. Ace's active ability gives you, first of all, a random number of war supplies, but what is more important, will buff all of the war supplies you will buy in the next 60 seconds. So what I will do usually is I wait a certain number of waves, drop my buffs, get the airdrop going, and then get all of my war supplies. And after getting like 50 or 60 war supplies, I will usually save maybe 10 to 20 war supplies again, get the buff going again, and then spend them all again. And when I'm approaching my highest wave, I always save some Tortoise energy, switch to Elroy, and get this armor buff going. Because it's active for 52 levels right now, so usually because it's like the period before it gets activated, you have 2 minutes to accumulate damage before it gets like converted to armor. So I will activate this like every 30 to 40 levels. Depends how fast you are progressing. The higher you are, the slower you will progress through the waves, so it might even be enough to wait 40 levels once your armor buff gets applied, and then 40 waves later just apply the buff again, because your damage will be higher by that time usually, and you will get more armor next time. And this will make it easier to get your units to actually die, and this way to get more tombstones or even just progress further. Because there is another pilot, this would be I have no idea. Flint? Yeah, Flint. No, not Flint. Flint is skipping waves. Who was it? We will find the one eventually. Ah, yes. So there is a chance to get war rank experience after your current best level. So this is a huge boost if you can't really progress right now. So don't, as I've mentioned in the beginning, don't push your highest wave too far in the beginning. Just go maybe 5 levels over the last one if you have your tombstones set already, and then just ascend to the next one. I would say put out like 5 tombstones if you can before ascending. But in the first few generations it's not that important. I started around generation 20, 30 maybe, I can't remember. I know that I've set a tombstone once or twice, and then later I realized, oh wow, those buffs are really huge. I need to focus on that. And that's why my gun tortoise usually, when I'm approaching my highest wave, the gun tortoise will usually be 99% of my total DPS. Sometimes, depends on other buffs and how many war supplies I've got, missile toad will be a big DPS guy. Artillery beetles is also strong, but yeah. So that's all about the fishing and adventure mode for now. So just a quick showcase. I've leveled a little further, or just progressed a little further. And as you can see, 21 of my units are dead, and that's what I want. Oh, and also gun tortoise is doing 99% of the damage as usual. And the enemies still can't kill me because I have DS armor and they are dealing like AH or AJ damage right now, so nothing to be worried about. And the thing is now, with the passive from Gorlock reviving every 5 minutes, you have to get your whole squad down before the 5-minute timer's up. So the Mouse Sword squad just got the buff, hamster commands also. Now only the Mouse Rangers are missing, the War Balloon Brigade, which tends to get killed sometimes pretty quick, but sometimes not at all. And don't bother going for the Sparrow Squadron. I think I managed it once or twice and I have no idea how it happened. I was testing with only having 1 unit in the squad, but this seemed to not trigger the tombstone. So I don't know whether that got changed or that's intended or not. So I basically tried having only 1 Assassin Frog, 1 Sparrow Squadron, and also 1 Mouse Ranger only, because they almost never get fully wiped. It's really hard. You have to know what you're doing, like constantly buffing your armor and basically out-surviving all of your units. But even then, Sparrow Squadrons nearly never gets wiped. So yeah. It's kind of hard to get all of the tombstones out every time, so don't bother. If you have 4 or 5 tombstones, just go for it. And now everyone got revived. And you have to wait for the next time the wipe chain starts happening. Usually it's when your main damage dealers go down first to some random shots. And when those are down, the other ones go down pretty quickly. So this could happen in a wave, but this could also happen in 100 waves again. You never really know. Sometimes you get a squad wipe, like I mentioned earlier, in wave 100. So here is like a tortoise fruit, which will get auto-collected. I'm not clicking it right now. And now Ancient is another level up. And if you're seeing some lag spikes or freezes, it's not really a lag. It's because the game has been running for a few hours now, so I will probably restart it in a few minutes. So now only the last part. I want to give you a quick overview of an actual adventure. I'm not going far. Maybe, yeah, why not? Maybe we'll take the new one because I haven't done it myself. So it might be actually a good start to showcase you the adventure mode. Let's begin the adventure. So you can start it by basically leaving this camp with C, and there will always be 3 points that are randomly generated, but those pins, I think they're called, will appear in some groups. So you will usually see an attack with an escape or an adventure upgrade, sometimes even a camp location. So I'm pretty over-leveled for World 1 enemies, and that's why they don't do any damage to me. I'm also not bothering with taking the camping location or the adventure upgrades right now. So what you can do is you strike them melee with right click or shoot with left click. Pretty straightforward, I think. And there are certain buffs for the adventure level, or like the adventure map that you are playing here. So adventure upgrades, let's take one for now. They will be active while you are in this adventure map. So as soon as I leave this one to actually take my rewards with me, those buffs will be gone again. So I will switch to the auto target mode now because it's easier for me, and so you can see it how it works. And as soon as a wave of enemies is down, you get the adventure upgrades. One is always free and another one costs you money. Usually I go fully for ranged DPS, but we don't have the money yet. You get not a lot of money by killing enemies. The most money you can get is by opening cash crates here. Just shoot them, you don't have to run to them. And now we have another adventure upgrade and a camping location. I don't want to do adventure upgrades again because I don't have any money and I don't need the stats right now. So don't worry about being too weak, because with a few adventure upgrades and other stuff that I will talk about in a second, you can get pretty strong in the adventure. So I mentioned the camp earlier inside of the adventure. The camp will basically write down the experience points you've gotten so far. So I've only gotten 30 experience points so far, but those will not stay. So you have to camp to apply the experience points. I will do that just for now. And this way, basically, after this camp is over, like the timer of, I don't know, 10 seconds or what this is, you will get the permanent experience applied to your adventure. So we have, I don't think we're gonna see those 30 XP. Yeah, after this one, basically, you will get, oh, we see it actually, yeah. 5,230 is it? Yeah. And also you will heal at this camping location if you need it. And after that you will just leave the camp with C again and continue. There are also quests for the adventure mode to get some additional adventure tokens. Remember, adventure tokens, oh, wrong key. Adventure tokens are for the shop, and adventure coins are what you collect inside of the adventure to buy stuff. Buffs, basically. And there are like the easy to get buffs from the adventure upgrade pin over there. When you want to progress, you have to find an attack location, which, as it states right here, gives you plus 10 adventure levels. If you were in an adventure already and got to a high level, you will find heavy attack locations which will spawn a really strong enemy. Oh, good point. And this will basically send you 100 levels higher, meaning stronger enemies, better rewards, and more and stronger enemies basically. Now to the most important stuff, and it's we got really lucky that it spawned right now. First of all, the different adventure locations seem to have different spawning rates of pins that you capture. If you're just starting out, stay on this first one here for a long time. Just get it to level 1000 and farm adventure tokens there. I would even say if you've captured it to level 1000, re-enter it after you got your rewards, and go below 1000, because starting wave 1000 inside the adventure, the enemy spawn rates get really high. So I usually farm around wave 800, because when you capture locations, even without taking the attack one, your level will still increase by one, by one, by one, and so on. So just go up to 700, 800, or even 900, or if you don't care, go above 1000 and farm your tokens there. Because the higher, first of all, your adventure rank and the level inside the adventure, the more tokens you will get. This is also true, and might be another question someone has, how to get gems. So those gems that you can spend on equipment, leveling heroes and stuff like that. It's most gems, especially in the early game, you can easily get in the adventure here. And now let's talk about the strongest buffs that you can get while inside the adventure. Those are, remember, not permanent, they are just for the adventure until it's over. Those are mystic artifacts and dark artifacts. Mystic artifacts are collected 5 times and will give you a stats increase times 5. So when I've collected 5 different ones, all of my stats here will get multiplied by 5. No diminishing returns, and also not, you cannot do it twice. So after you've collected 5 of them, this pin will disappear and something else will spawn. So as you can see, 4 more to go. The dark artifact, on the other hand, will give you like a curse for a few rounds. A round is capturing a pin, and when the curse is gone, which can disable your melee or ranged weapon, don't worry, disabling is only for this auto aim mode. So if you get a curse, you can still shoot. And this dark artifact, which you will most likely go for when your equipment is still pretty low, this will give pretty huge boosts, also like doubling your range DPS or giving your melee DPS like times 5 and stuff like that. It will only always give one buff at a time, but it's just a raw increase. So it's not like added to the formula, it's just if it says times 2 to range damage, your range damage will be times 2 after that buff. So you can easily go from 1 billion to 2 or from 10 billion to 20, and the dark artifacts do not disappear at some point. So for the adventure itself, as you saw, you have health and armor. Armor will not regenerate, health also not. There is an exception, you can have 4 abilities here inside the adventure that you can buy from the adventure upgrades. Usually you wouldn't bother getting those because you have 10 energy, and I think the energy only, I'm not sure about that, but I think it refills after camping and maybe when going to the next location, I'm not sure. But usually they are not worth getting. So I just wanted to show you some pins, so you get an idea of how the adventure mode works. The boss one is also kind of interesting. Bosses have two things you have to watch out for. Many bosses have a poison attack, or are poisonous or venomous, or however you call it. And the second thing is they can shoot missiles. Not the low ones here, I think, but later on they can shoot missiles, which are also poisonous when they explode sometimes. And normal mobs also have poison, but the poison from normal mobs is not really strong. As soon as you move when you are poisoned, you will get damage. And the boss poison is really strong, usually, so you have to watch out for, or you get lucky and acquire an armor that makes you immune to poison. Don't worry too much about the passives as you are progressing. You will change your gear quite often, especially as you climb the adventure ranks. I still have the goal for myself in the long run, maybe after generation, I don't know, 200 or so, to get my adventurer to the maximum level and my adventure rank, I don't know, maybe to 25, I think. Because, like I said earlier, the gear and the rewards generally that you can get in an adventure are dependent on your adventurer or adventure rank. So, for example, let's take this adventure token pin location, which will be your farming spot on a higher level. Also, you can summon heroes. Yeah, maybe let's talk about that for a second before we take the adventure tokens one. So you can summon up to 3 heroes, only one at a time, and they will be level 1 inside the adventure. The devs said that your modifiers for heroes, your damage modifiers, and their level outside of the adventure actually affect their damage inside the adventure. We don't know any formulas, and I still have to verify this, but if you are just starting out, the heroes are pretty weak inside the adventure. I actually have to test this, how strong they are now. Maybe they're stronger now, but that damage, yeah, I never really found them helpful, let's say above wave 500 or level 500. So now we are taking the adventure tokens one, which is your number one farming location on higher waves. These are, remember, the ones to spend. And as you can see, I only get 19 now. And we are level 25. And both your level and the adventure rank will determine how many adventure tokens you get. And also, as you can see, adventure loot right there, this is one item for your adventurer, so don't bother going for those in the lower levels. Just, it's not worth it. If you have some gear and want to escape, you have to take the escape one, the escape pin, because you have a backpack here, and there all of this stuff will accumulate: gems, tokens, items. And it's actually funny, this pack mouse here can have like a lot of crates on it. I think I saw like 25 crates on it, and it looks really funny. And like I said, I don't want to go too far right now. I just wanted to show you how the adventure mode is working. So you have to go into the escape location to exit it. And I think that's it for the adventure mode. Just beware, the rewards will get better the higher you go and the better your adventure rank is. So don't worry if the rewards will be bad. If you see a gem, I'm not sure how it's called exactly, but just something with gem, it usually appears with artifact or adventure tokens. When you are really low in the beginning on gems, prefer the gem one over the token one, because the gem pin seems to appear not that often from what I've seen, and I've spent a lot of hours in the adventure mode, so it's in the beginning, every time you camp, basically after killing a few enemies, you will level up. But after that, after I think level 100, 150, it takes longer because you seem to get way more experience when you are above your highest level that you previously had in the adventure. So for this new adventure location here, of course, I have no highest level yet, or now it's, what is it? I don't know, something low, I think 20. But still, those are just low-level enemies that don't yield me that much experience, so I probably have to go to wave 800 plus again to get good experience points, and even then is camping not always a level up for me. But I still want to level up the adventurer more. It's just affecting your base multipliers, not by much, I think, but still helps a little bit. The melee weapons can get really strong. Sometimes they are maybe a lifesaver if your ranged weapon is underpowered and you simply jump up to the boss and just execute them one hit with a melee attack. Because as you can see, 70.4k and only 1.8k for range damage. And from what the devs said, the gear you get is also dependent on how many items you acquire. So the more items you acquire, the higher the chance of getting better gear. This is also true for the fishing rods. As you can see, my last one was only 4k and the next epic one I found was already a lot better, and they are both maxed. So yeah, I think that's it for the adventure mode. I just wanted to give you a quick showcase of it. You can spend many hours here. I think 6 to 8 hours will probably give you around 10k adventure tokens if you have no gear at all, because you cannot get gear while you are in the adventure. Remember, you have to exit the adventure with your backpack to actually get all of it. There is one exception: you can find adventure gear. Oh, good example. You can find adventure gear in the shop, and this will be in your inventory right after that. But yeah, even though this has 5k more power, I wouldn't get a machine gun. If you don't have a laser weapon, go for what is best, of course. But as soon as you find a laser weapon, only switch to a better laser weapon, basically. Like I said, don't worry too much about the passives. I mean, they are nice, but not really important, because due to the buffs inside the adventure, especially in World 1, we are talking about beginning your adventure. You get pretty strong. Once you acquire the 5 mystic artifacts, and they appear quite often here, and also it seems like either we just were lucky here, but there are other locations. Let's just quickly, yes, this is bad for farming. I farmed here quite a lot of times. I nearly never had mystic artifacts. So if your gear is good enough to get up to wave 1000 or level 1000, go for it, but don't hope for good loot. Also, I didn't find a lot of tokens in here. The first one is really the best one for farming. Remember, we are only talking about World 1, because Northland is a whole different story. I didn't even do any adventures in Limbo West yet, because I think the enemies are even stronger. Because in Northland, the enemies are glass cannons. They have low health, but they do a lot of damage. I still get one shot on early waves from ranged enemies. The thing is, when they spawn, you have a few seconds to adjust, and some enemies don't have that long range or have slow projectiles. So you are pretty much fine until you buff your armor and health a little. But you have to do that in the second world. And the rewards, from what I've seen, are not that much better than in the first. So stay in World 1. Increase your adventure rank and yeah, just get some gear. and basically farm your adventure tokens in the first location. This basically will help you out, so when you get enough tokens, unlock, like I said earlier, your bonuses, go a little fishing on a fishing adventure, and you're pretty much set. After that, if you've done your few relics, you don't have to bother with the adventure mode ever again. I still find it enjoyable sometimes, but I farmed it so much at the beginning. I also had many tokens left over after I bought the relics, but they were mostly all spent on DNA, sometimes on wave money and stuff like that, but mostly on DNA. And now I just don't want to go into an adventure right now. I will in the future, but not right now. So I think we talked about most of the important stuff. Units, adventure mode, fishing. If you have any questions, if I forgot something, you are curious about something, please let me know. Thank you for watching. And I hope this helped you a little, and enjoy the game.